Well, the biggest takeaway for me is that the Green Bay Packers appear to have a running game. This kid, Aaron Jones, what does he rush for? 23 carries, 154 yards, had a 56-yard touchdown run, averaged 6.7 yards a carry. And if you have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback and you have a running game to speak of, that goes a long, long way because we know what he can do when it comes to flinging that football. But to have a running game to rely upon, you're talking about play action. You're talking about a guy you can dip and dunk to out of the backfield because he can catch some passes as well. We know that he can run the football. You're talking about being able to go for the big play but also moving the chains and being methodical in your approach. If you take that and you combine that with the fact that it spells the defense to some degree, Zadarius Smith, the Smith brothers, Preston Zadarius or what have you, and you saw what they were doing last night, that goes a very, very long way. I'm not going to get on Minnesota too much because, as I said before the game, I predicted Green Bay will win this game because if you don't have Dalvin Cook in the backfield, that really, really hampers Kirk Cousins. Not to mention the fact that even though Thielen came back, he wasn't even targeted. He didn't catch a pass all night long, and Diggs only had about 3 receptions for 57 yards. So we see how much Dalvin Cook's absence hampers Minnesota, and I don't think that's the real Minnesota Vikings team. They're an entirely different team with Dalvin Cook, so it's really not about what I saw from them offensively. It's about what I saw from Green Bay against that playoff-ready defense that is the Minnesota Vikings. If it were not for an ability to run the football, Minnesota might have still won this game. But because Green Bay can run the football now, it's a different animal.
Well, look, Dalvin Cook was missing. It's true. And we saw Green Bay's defense exposed against Philly earlier in the year against the run. So that said, I was very impressed with the Green Bay defense. The Packers have a defense. I mean, again, like no elite running back to see how they can stop the run, but they were ferocious when they needed to be. They were getting to the quarterback, getting pressure. They were doing a lot of good things on defense. And my big takeaway from that is that Aaron Rodgers never throws interceptions because the fact of the matter is the ugly truth in recent years is he's been more of a game manager than he used to be. I say that's not a bad word, but in Aaron Rodgers' case, I'm used to more heroics, especially late in the game. I have not seen them from him. But the fact that the Green Bay Packers can beat their most dangerous divisional rivals on the road in a situation where Aaron Rodgers throws an interception, they can win the Super Bowl. But in order to do it, Rodgers is going to have to be pulling a LeBron right now. It has to be that he's in some way not the same animal that he's going to be in the playoffs. He's very good game managing. Can he be more than that? If he can turn it on, if he can put the pedal to the metal in the playoffs, this could be a Super Bowl team.
I think the Green Bay Packers are the team that the rest of the NFC is going to be the most nervous about.
Okay.
Because when you look at the Green Bay Packers this year, they're 8-1 against winning teams. Think about that. They are 8-1 against winning teams.
Best record in the NFL.
Best record in the NFL without Aaron Rodgers really being Aaron Rodgers. The defense is a championship caliber defense. They can win that way. Aaron Jones, we saw what he could do last night against a really good Minnesota Vikings defense. If we get any glimpse of Aaron Rodgers of old, the Aaron Rodgers that we've been accustomed to seeing over pretty much his whole career, you mean to tell me that Green Bay Packers team can't run through the NFC playoffs and be on their way to Miami? Because right now, Aaron Rodgers is more, quite honestly, game manager. Like you said, Max, he's more game manager. If he's able to elevate his play, because what you saw last night is you saw some overthrows, inconsistent play, and we've seen that from Aaron Rodgers. Everyone's been talking about, well, what's going on with the offense? It's really been Aaron Rodgers.
Damien, you think they can win the way like Elway, like Aaron Rodgers been Elway plus, where Elway was going to be remembered like Donovan McNabb, excellent quarterback but not a champion, got a running game late in his career, was no longer really John Elway, won a couple championships. Do you think the Packers can win the Super Bowl behind a defense and a running game if this is as good as Aaron Rodgers is going to be?
I think Aaron Rodgers need to elevate his play some. I think if he elevates his play, again, if he becomes the Aaron Rodgers that we've been accustomed to seeing throughout his career, absolutely, I think the Green Bay Packers can go to the Super Bowl, especially you're talking about playing in Lambeau Field. Because the one thing about Green Bay Packers, it's rare that they have a hiccup at home. They are really good playing in Lambeau Field.
But see, to me, almost by default, you got to take this into consideration. First of all, Zadarius Smith had 4 sacks last night. Let's remember that. He was all over. He was all over.
They needed it,
he was
too.
He was a monster, and they needed it. That's number one. Number two, here's where it gets interesting. We all know that New Orleans don't want to go to Lambeau Field. I'm talking about weather-wise.
Right.
When you are a dome team, I'm just saying that, even Minnesota at this point, now back in the day, it was a different Minnesota team because of those frigid temperatures and it was outdoors. So going from Minnesota to Lambeau Field in Green Bay, it's the same kind of climate. But now that Minnesota is a dome team, okay, it's a bit difficult. It's a bit more difficult for them as well. But they have a running game. And even though New Orleans, to some degree, if you take New Orleans out of the equation, because I don't think New Orleans wins at Lambeau Field, not in that frigid weather. If it's frigid weather, it's inclement weather, I don't think they win in that situation. Now you're talking about it's really about San Francisco and Seattle.
But I don't think San Francisco is good, like, considering the age of the quarterback and the relative lack of experience. Hard to imagine them going to Lambeau and beating a Packers team if Aaron Rodgers has some gas
That's
in the
fair,
tank.
but I would bring up your point in the question. No one has raved, at least coming into this season, no one raved about Kyle Shanahan more than you did.
Yep.
So you got his play calling. Then you have a running game. And you have a defense that nobody questions can show up. Now, they've slid over the last few weeks a little bit
That's
with
what
the
happened
points that they've allowed.
when you play some really good teams. That's what happened when the San Francisco 49ers.
Or when the attrition kicks in. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.